Hello, friends. Listen closely now, because this moment is not accidental, and the fact that you are hearing these words right now means something far deeper is happening beneath the surface of your life than you may have realized. God says you were in danger, not just once, not just recently, but more times than you could ever count. Moments where the outcome could have shifted in a breath. Seconds where one different choice, one delayed step, one missed pause could have changed everything. You didn't see it then, and you don't need to feel afraid now, because this is not a message of fear. This is a message of awareness, and awareness is the beginning of protection. There were nights you should not have made it home the way you did, conversations that could have turned darker than they did, decisions that could have cost you more than you were ready to pay. Yet somehow, something intervened, quietly, invisibly, without announcement. God says that was not luck, not coincidence, not random chance drifting through your life. That was guidance. That was restraint placed around you when you didn't know how to protect yourself. That was a hand you could not see, moving things just enough so you would still be here to hear this now. There were times you felt uneasy for no clear reason, a tightening in your chest, a pause in your spirit, a voice inside you that whispered, "Wait, don't go yet, turn around, stay silent, leave early, choose differently." You may have brushed it off, told yourself you were overthinking, tried to silence it with logic or distraction. But God says that voice was not your imagination. That was warning, wrapped in gentleness. That was mercy, disguised as intuition. Danger doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it hums softly in the background, hoping you won't notice until it's too late. But you noticed, even when you didn't understand why. God says you were being redirected, step by step, moment by moment, away from things that would have harmed you in ways you were not equipped to survive back then. You think strength means enduring anything, but God says wisdom means not having to. Some dangers were external, people whose intentions were not clean, situations that looked harmless on the surface but carried hidden consequences, environments that would have slowly drained you, reshaped you, hardened you into someone you were never meant to become. Other dangers were internal, thoughts that spiraled too far, doubts that tried to convince you that you were alone, patterns that repeated because they felt familiar, even when they hurt. God says you were protected from yourself more times than you know. There were breakdowns that could have broken you completely, but didn't. There were losses that could have turned you bitter, but instead made you deeper. There were moments when giving up felt reasonable, even logical, yet something inside you refused to let go. That refusal was not stubbornness. That was purpose defending itself. God says there were doors that did not open for you, and at the time you felt rejected, delayed, overlooked, maybe even punished. You questioned why others seemed to move ahead while you stayed still, why opportunities slipped away at the last second, why plans fell apart despite your effort. But those closed doors were not denial, they were protection. Behind some of those doors were traps dressed as blessings, outcomes that would have pulled you off course so subtly you wouldn't realize you were lost until years later. God says you don't see the full map, only the step in front of you. And sometimes the safest step is the one that feels like nothing is happening at all. Stillness is not abandonment. Stillness is often shelter. You survived seasons that should have taken more from you than they did. You walked away from situations that others did not survive, emotionally, spiritually, or even physically. God says this is not because you are invincible, but because you are intentional. There is something assigned to your life that required preservation. That's why certain things missed you by inches. That's why the timing worked out just enough. That's why help arrived from unexpected places, from people who didn't even know the role they were playing. God says when you were unaware, protection was active. When you were exhausted, protection was relentless. When you were numb, protection was still working in silence. And now you are being told this not to relive fear, but to recognize alignment. God says the danger you were in is not meant to define you, but it is meant to wake you. You are entering a season where awareness matters more than speed, where listening matters more than proving, where discernment matters more than approval. The same voice that warned you before is still speaking, but it requires quiet to be heard. God says, slow down enough to notice what no longer sits right with you. Pay attention to what drains you quickly. Notice who leaves you unsettled rather than strengthened. These are not small signals. They are early warnings, and early warnings are gifts. You are not being threatened. You are being prepared. God says the reason this message reaches you now is because you are no longer as vulnerable as you once were, but you are also stepping into greater responsibility. Growth attracts resistance. Purpose attracts pressure. Light attracts attention, not all of it friendly. That doesn't mean retreat. It means refine. The protection that once had to work around you now wants to work with you. Awareness turns protection into partnership. Listening turns survival into direction. There is a calm that comes from realizing you are never as alone as you thought. That even in moments where you felt unguarded, something was guarding you anyway. God says, let that calm settle into you now. Let it slow your breathing. Let it soften your shoulders. You don't need to replay every close call or question every past decision. What matters is that you are here, intact, learning, becoming more conscious of the subtle guidance that has always surrounded you. You were in danger, yes, but you were also chosen to pass through it, not to be consumed by it. And that changes how you move forward from this point on. God says, now that you know this, you will begin to see your past differently. Not with regret, not with fear, but with clarity that settles into your bones, like truth finally landing where it belongs. You will realize that the moments you thought were random were actually arranged, that the delays you resented were intentional pauses, that the confusion you experienced was often a shield preventing you from seeing too much too soon. God says there are things you could not have handled earlier, truths that would have overwhelmed you, realities that would have shaken your faith in yourself. So they were kept just out of reach until you were strong enough to hold them without breaking. Protection is not always about stopping the danger. Sometimes it is about strengthening the one who will eventually face it with wisdom instead of panic. You may remember times when something inside you urged you to let go of certain people, habits, or environments, even when they felt familiar, even when leaving felt like loss. God says familiarity is not safety, and comfort is not always peace. Some connections were slowly eroding your clarity, dulling your instincts, teaching you to ignore your inner warning system. That is why separation came when it did, sometimes gently, sometimes abruptly, sometimes in ways that felt unfair. You thought you were losing something valuable, but God says you are being removed from something dangerous before it could fully entangle you. What felt like an ending was actually a rescue you didn't yet recognize. There were seasons when you doubted your own judgment, when you replayed conversations and decisions late at night, wondering if you had missed something obvious, wondering why things felt heavier than they should. God says that weight was not weakness, it was discernment developing. Discernment often feels uncomfortable at first because it requires you to stop trusting appearances and start trusting perception. You were learning to read between the lines, to feel what wasn't being said, to notice patterns instead of excuses. That learning process protected you from repeating cycles that would have kept you stuck in the same kind of danger, just wearing a different mask. God says you are more sensitive now, not fragile, but aware. You pick up on shifts in energy, on subtle changes in tone, on moments where something doesn't align the way it used to. This sensitivity is not something to suppress or apologize for. It is an upgrade. It is what keeps you from walking into situations that look good on the outside, but are hollow underneath. It is what alerts you when your peace is being negotiated away, piece by piece. God says, honor that sensitivity. It is part of how you stay protected moving forward. You may wonder why you had to experience danger at all, why protection didn't simply remove every threat before it ever got close. God says understanding comes from contrast. If you had never felt the edge of loss, you wouldn't recognize stability when it arrives. If you had never stood near collapse, you wouldn't respect balance when you find it. Danger sharpened you. It taught you to pause, to listen, to question, to value your intuition over approval. The goal was never to keep you untouched, but to keep you evolving without being destroyed in the process. Now the message shifts, because God says the protection that surrounded you before was largely unseen, automatic, intervening when you were unaware. But from this point forward, your awareness becomes part of the protection. You are being invited to participate consciously. This means choosing rest before exhaustion forces it. This means walking away when your body tightens instead of explaining it away. This means trusting the quiet knowing even when logic demands proof. God says danger loses its power when you stop ignoring the early signals. Most harm does not arrive suddenly. It announces itself softly first, hoping you won't listen. You are not meant to live in fear or suspicion. God says vigilance is calm, not anxious. It is a steady presence within you that knows when to engage and when to withdraw. Wisdom waits. Protection moves quietly. You don't need to broadcast your plans, justify your boundaries, or prove your strength through endurance. Strength now looks like choice. It looks like discernment. It looks like refusing to normalize what costs you your peace. There will be moments ahead where you feel that familiar pause again, that inner slowing, that subtle resistance to proceeding the way you always have. When that happens, remember this message. God says stop and listen. Not everything urgent is important. Not everyone who wants access deserves it. Not every opportunity is aligned with your purpose. Some doors will look tempting because they mirror old desires, but your spirit will feel unsettled because you've outgrown the version of yourself that once wanted them. Outgrowing is not betrayal. It is protection continuing its work through growth. God says you are entering a phase where clarity replaces chaos, where understanding replaces confusion, where peace becomes your confirmation instead of struggle. That does not mean challenges disappear. It means you meet them differently. You no longer walk blindly into danger hoping for the best. You walk attentively, grounded, responsive to guidance that has proven itself again and again. The same presence that kept you safe when you were unaware is still with you now, but now it speaks to you as a partner, not just a guardian. Let this realization settle deeply. You were not careless. You were learning. You were not unlucky. You were protected. You were not weak. You were preserved. God says the danger you survived did not disqualify you. It qualified you to move forward with wisdom, compassion, and authority over your own life. From this point on, you don't move out of fear of what could go wrong, but out of respect for what has already kept you alive, aware, and evolving. And that awareness, once awakened, does not fade. Thank you so much, friends, for watching this video on God Jesus Message. I pray that the teachings of Jesus have touched your heart, given you hope, and inspired you to live in His love today. If you enjoyed this message, please like this video, share it with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more Bible teachings, prayers, and inspirational messages. We'd also love to hear from you. Leave a comment below sharing your thoughts, prayers, or what God has been teaching you lately.